Hey kids, you like rock and metal from Europe? No? Fuck. Welcome to Ray Runner Does Music, where today we're taking a look at Danish band Volbeat's sixth studio album, Let's Seal the Deal and Boogie. This is actually a commission request from my good friend Eduardo. Came through, he was like, hey, have an album, and I was like, hey, have a review. It only took me a month. But regardless, let's get into the actual review here. Like many people, I first heard of Volbeat when they're insanely high hits. The Devil's Bleeding Crown came into radio circulation, and I believe it was 2016 or 17. Whatever year it was one of the biggest rock and metal songs of the entire year. And a lot of people praised the band for how they decided to fuse elements of both genres. In fact, whether it was before the song came out or afterwards, the only song in their catalog across streaming services that doesn't have the minimum of 1 million streams is a cover of Misfits. Not only are these guys talented, but they're very smart in how they can put together catchy songs that come across as just kind of riding the line of either sitting just well enough to entertain casual listeners, while also providing a nice platform for OG fans, hardcore metal and rock enthusiasts, and so much more to enjoy the music. Let's start off with the biggest song, and in fact the song I just mentioned briefly, The Devil's Bleeding Crown. I'll admit, this is one of my most hated songs from 2016, purely because you could not escape it. It was everywhere. It was the Zombie by Bad Wolves. It was the RX by Theory of a Dead Man. You could not escape it. It was even playing on the bus on the way to school. It was everywhere and it was inescapable. But now that I'm older, exactly 5 years older than that, I'm starting to look at music that I maybe wasn't such a big fan of back in the day. I'm starting to appreciate music more, and I'm starting to appreciate this track a little more. I can even admit that stylistically, thematically, this is a brilliant track. Throughout the song, we're given glimpses at allusions to heaven, hell, the devil, things similar to that. And usually those kind of ideas and images are beaten into your mind when it comes to a rock or metal song. Like, I'm talking like, you'll have songs straight up saying, the body of Christ is in me, or something super obvious right in your face. But Volbeat takes it almost kind of casually. Like, you get obvious, like, grand representations of these elements and these themes here, but it's not as loud as one might think when you initially think of a rock or metal band taking on those types of themes. In fact, I think this band really takes that sort of approach oftentimes. They'll kind of, again, ride the line, sit on either side of the fence. Sometimes they'll deeply dive into a subject, and other times they'll just create just light enough allusions to get the point across without overstaying its welcome. What I really like about this song is the fact that it never really splits between, like, a hard split, like tone change or instrumental change between verses and chorus. It all flows together almost as one long freeform bit. And I really love when bands do that, because this makes the song flow better, sound better. Everything about the song just gets pushed up to 11. But yeah, overall with this track, it's all hard, heavy, like chugging drums, pounding guitars, riffs aplenty, and you never really get a sense of stopping until the song stops. Speaking of those instrumental elements, I do quickly want to talk about John Larson, the drummer, who I think he's putting in what can be considered basic drum work and drum patterns here, but the way it fuses and meshes with the rest of the band is really expertly done. Like, I think I talked about in my Gojira review as well, how a drummer, whether they're getting intricate or sticking to their basics, they can really pull a band together in more ways than one. In the beginning, I briefly touched on how the band likes to fuse several elements of rock and metal, whether it be the more casual groove-influenced sides of these, or the harder hitting versions of these. I did touch on that briefly, and I want to go into it a little bit more here with a couple tracks. Gates of Babylon sounds like a song ripped from arena rock heavy hitters, and it sounds like this band could be opening for bands like Guns N' Roses, perhaps even Slayer, with the type of atmosphere that they're giving off with this song here. It feels very 80s and 90s, again, very arena rock. It feels something suitable that you could really put on and a lot of people could appreciate, whether they enjoy the more casual rock or the more like harder rock. The semi-intricate guitar produces a very nice pulsing rhythm throughout it. And speaking on like classic rock vibes here, Seal the Deal has a very classical vibe as well, which I really appreciate. Looking at it from all angles, from critical perspective, personal perspective, you could even go as far as to call this song sort of a thrash influenced piece. I don't know about thrash per se, but thrash influence is a label that I think fits this very well. You could even compare it to very select Metallica songs when it comes to that version of thrash metal. And a lot of people might be quick to dismiss that and quick to say like, oh, well, they aren't super heavy, they can't even put in the same vein as that. Going back to their cover of Angel Fuck by Misfits, or even a song on this album, Slayton, they can very easily pull off a heavy persona here. Speaking on Slayton, the song comes in at just under a minute, but is enough to get the blood pumping, get you ready to fight, get you feeling just full of like anger, piss, vigor. It's like a nice little punch to kick you back into rhythm as the album starts to wind down. I think this band maintains its image best when they're writing catchy songs that may sound tame, but still carry a good level of quality and a good level of attention to detail. I might mispronounce this, I forgot the actual pronunciation. I looked it up and I forgot it. Marie Laveau is my personal favorite song off the album for many reasons, a couple of which I'm going to discuss here, of course, because it's a review. It's a straight up rock ballad that, for the most part, completely strips away the metal side of this, unless you look deep into some of the instrumental elements, which some arguments can be made. But for the most part, it's a straight up rock ballad, like, not quite radio rock or butt rock. It's not that deep in, but it is very reminiscent of songs like, trying to think here, older examples like Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, or maybe more recent examples like A Grave Mistake by X9 Kills, in terms of like pure sing-songy, catchy, easy to listen to and easy to absorb rock. Volbeat pulls off the switch between rock and metal many times throughout the album. And getting to this point here in the review, and as I was listening to the album, of course, I gotta say I'm leaning more towards appreciating the pure rock side as opposed to the metal side. They can do both really well, but I'm connecting more and enjoying more the rock and roll side. The hard-hitting guitar, the quick chugs, the intense riffs, they were replaced by, again, just a very classic and enjoyable 80s rock, classic rock vibe. Without running the risk of repeating myself, the song Gates of Babylon kind of follows a similar feeling, but ups the intensity just a little bit more, holds an overall more rushed feeling to it, which complements the track very well. While it's not a negative per se, it's never really a negative in terms of using this term at all, but I do want to state that in general here. There's a lot of moments on this album that have influence, and there's a lot of moments that are straight rip influences, not rip-offs, but influences ripped from other bands that you can't really ignore them as things go on. Influence is a very important element of Volbeat, that you cannot understate that enough. They talk about it a lot in their interviews, you can hear it and feel it in the music they make. But this album particularly, I skimmed the others and I couldn't really find a stronger example of this. This album has very strong influence feels. I actually came away from this album wondering if that was a exact idea that they wanted to go into this album with, or if they came out of this album thinking, we kind of explored this, let's maybe boost it up a little bit more in production. But there are some very specific moments, such as Rebound, and this might be a bit of a stretch, but it's a feeling I can't shake off. Rebound kind of sounds like a song from Famous Monsters by Misfits, both in the vocal delivery, the way the lyrics are structured, kind of the lyrical themes, as well as some more similar moments. Like early on, there's a song that has a straight up Nightmare era Avenged Sevenfold riff, which I really did not expect at all. And another song in that early beginning as well that sounds very similar to, I don't think you're ready for this, Barracuda by Heart, I think is the band. Hey Hunter, in editing, did Heart write Barracuda? See, if I don't remember this is going to make me look like an asshole. Am I an asshole? Can't argue with that. Again, this isn't a detriment, this isn't a negative, but it's one of those things that you can't really ignore and you have to stop, replay, listen again, and sit there and think, okay, that was like this. Some people like that, some people don't enjoy that, some people hate that. I'm sitting in the middle where I still enjoy the songs, but I can't shake off that similarity feeling, and it doesn't drag it down, but it kind of sticks a couple hooks in the ship and goes, hey, take a wiggle, gotcha. Looking away from this album, walking past this album, I think the biggest takeaway is there are many bands that have a successful song or a successful album and immediately get hit with the overrated, overplayed label. That's the label that I gave Volbeat when I first heard The Bleeding Crown way back in 2016. But it's very much worth diving into a band's album, perhaps their discography sometimes, and really finding out if they are overrated. This band, not overrated, they're pretty steady. I enjoy a lot of their former songs. In fact, I think the album that came out before this, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's the album that came right before Seal the Deal that was actually probably my favorite album on first listen. I gave most of the albums a one-time listen through, and that one really stuck out to me. And this isn't a case like Bad Wolves, who put out Zombie, and I think it was another song from Disobey, and everybody was like, yeah, this is so good, but then you listen to the actual album, and it's like, oh, what the fuck? Side note, by the way, Bad Wolves is coming out with a new album. I'm giving them another chance when the album comes out. Just right now, it's like, hey, What was that? Getting back to the actual point here, I went into this album with a negative mindset. I'll admit, I went into it, I got the request, and I was like, ah, fuck, I really have to listen to this. I really have to review this, but I went in regardless, because I am a reviewer, I'm a critic, and I want to start forming genuine critical perspectives, kind of pushing my personal perspectives aside. And I'd like to think that I came away with a kind of a positive outlook on Volbeat here. Were there still moments to dispute? Absolutely. Every album, even if I do a complete 180 on what I think about the album, there's going to be some negatives and some things to dispute. Maybe not negatives per se, because negative is kind of a harsh word, a heavy word, but it's the easiest word to use here. I think the only real, again, heavy word's probably not communicating exactly what I want to be communicated, but we're just going to use them anyway. I guess disappointments was that this album didn't have, well, don't fall, painting, you're very expensive. Was that this album didn't blow me away. I asked a couple of my personal friends, a couple of my friends who already listened to Volbeat, who hadn't listened to Volbeat but listened to similar things. I was like, hey, what do you think of this album? And I had a lot of people saying they were blown away. It was one of the best efforts they've ever heard from rock or metal. I didn't get that at all. It's above average, but it doesn't really cross that final bridge to become something truly magnificent for me. But it's still a very enjoyable listen, critically and personally. Even if at some point I felt like I was playing Guitar Hero 3 again. Ooh, Barracuda. Do I love them? Nah. Did I enjoy the album? Yeah. Am I gonna listen to the next one? More than likely. Overall, pretty fun album. I enjoyed it. I appreciate Eduardo putting in the commission, and again, if you want to do a commission, comment down below and we'll discuss it. Who knows, I might just do it for free, just because, why not? But getting into the actual scoring part, Let's Seal the Deal and Boogie by Volbeat gets a 7.5 out of 10. Down in the description, there's going to be a link to listen to this album, possibly a link to their tour dates. I don't know if they're actually on tour right now, but I usually try to leave a link to tour dates just in case you do want to keep updated on that. And yeah, essentially that's the review. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me over time. It means the world to me. Check out the music I'm using in the background, by the way, down below in the description as well. Lofi Records is a fantastic group that puts together a lot of great music. And whether you enjoy the music I'm listening to or something more from that, I hope you can get something from Lofi Records, just like I hope you get something from this review here. Thank you so much again. Stay hydrated. Have a good day.